Hello and welcome back to Some Climbing News. Thought this was going to be a pretty chill week, and then yesterday, a lot of stuff happened. We got a repeat of Grand Illusion by a relatively unknown climber, a fire that threatened an upcoming Climbing World Cup, Lonnie Kauk being found guilty of domestic violence. Huge stuff out of Colorado this week as Hamish McArthur manages a first repeat of Megatron V17/9A and more. So of course, as always, sit back, relax. Don't forget to give a like, subscribe if you're enjoying these weekly news segments, and yeah, let's just go for it. And starting us off today with Jules Marchaland, who just this week managed to get the FA of Les Bruits de l'Acide, a new 9B route in Clarette, France. Just last month, Jules managed to finish off his 5th ever 9A plus Cebuans Beyond, so honestly, pretty big improvement right there. This new route is yet another link-up. It seems to be kind of the norm at this point. There are a lot of very hard routes out there now that keep linking from one to another. I'm seeing kind of a pattern, which is pretty interesting. I don't know if it's significant or indicative of something or other, but yeah. 7C plus route into an 8B boulder, into a final 7C plus boulder without any sort of rest, according to Jules. So yeah, we're looking at some pretty hard stuff. Congratulations to Jules for hitting the 9B benchmark. Will be fun to see how quickly he manages to repeat some of the more well-known classics, but for now, links to all of his social media are in the description down below. And then, Czech names and Slovenian names. I have no idea how, we're talking consonants with diacritics. I know nothing about. What is the difference between this S and this S and this S? Anyways, all of this to say I apologize to Stephan Volf, if that's even how you pronounce your name, for what I'm about to do, and even more apologetic about not giving his latest FA the attention it deserves. Until now. Boleski Express, a new boulder in Moravsky Kras, takes up the mantle as Stephan's longest boulder project to date. An 8-move 8A plus/8B into a 4-move 8B/8B plus in a pretty gnarly looking roof. Now, I don't know about you, but roof climbing just gets me. The only thing that's kind of a bummer about them is that more often than not, the boulder doesn't top out, which in my opinion makes them lose a certain amount of quality points. But maybe that's just me, I don't know. If anyone out there in the comments feels the same way, let me know. Big congrats to Stephan. We will be seeing him in the next couple days. Actually, today, honestly, in the League World Cup being held in China this weekend. So best of luck to him during the comp. And then let's talk about Eli Perry, who definitely fits into the who category. No offense to Eli. Eli has just managed the 7th repeat of Grand Illusion after working his way down all of the different starts. If you don't remember, Grand Illusion is that one-line FA'd by Nathaniel Coleman a few years back that adds a really long extension to Euro Roof Low, a V13/8B boulder that was already an extension of Euro V10/7C+. And I want to bring attention to this comment from a Redditor that I saw under the post of Eli's send, because I think it really encapsulates what makes this sort of stuff so cool. It reads, "One of my favorite things about climbing is that every now and then a name pops up out of nowhere and does a really hard thing. Sometimes that's the last you'll hear, but sometimes it's Drew Ruana's 3 Days in Joe's video, or a young guy named Will Bosey climbing a lead at a World Cup, or a Swiss guy who climbs the world's hardest V17. And you look back on that moment when you heard about them and be like, oh yeah, damn, I knew they were good, but little did I know." And personally, yeah, I do remember seeing or hearing about a lot of the more famous climbers nowadays when they were relatively unknown for the first time and thinking, damn, they're doing some pretty wild stuff. So honestly, congratulations to Eli Perry, putting his social media stuff in the description as always. Go give him some love and hopefully we'll get to see more of him soon. And speaking of relatively unknown climbers, Aidan Roberts. Who even is that guy? Never even heard of him. He spent a while in Yosemite back in January and climbed the Dark Side, the hardest boulder problem in the valley, a V16/8C plus that was first climbed by Carlo Traversi. Now, thanks to the Patagonia YouTube channel, we finally get to see footage of the problem, and it's pretty sick. I'm linking the video below in the description. Looks like this is going to be a longer series that Patagonia will be publishing. It focuses on the minutiae of climbing hard stuff, so make sure to look out for that, because the first one's honestly a pretty cool video. And then let's talk huge news out of Brazil. So last year, the IFSC announced that the World Cups would be headed to South America for the first time ever and would be hosted in a venue in Curitiba in May that would be built throughout the year. But That was almost an incredibly short-lived plan, as this week a fire broke out during the construction of the future venue's roof. Now, it seems the fire started after a spark from welding work reached some... Okay, I don't speak Portuguese, and the only article I found on what happened is in Portuguese, and it uses the word colchones, which directly translates to mattresses, but in Spanish, colchoneta is also the word we use for pads, so assuming not mattresses but pads, as in crash pads for bouldering, which kind of makes a little bit more sense within the context of everything that's going on. But I digress. A spark from welding work landed on a pad, which subsequently caught fire and spread onto the wooden structure of the outdoor climbing wall that will be used for the event. But thankfully, the fire department was called and managed to quickly control the flames, minimizing the damage to only a small part of the slab wall. No injuries or deaths have been reported, and it seems that the damage was small enough that the event will still be able to take place on the same timeline. So honestly, just an incredibly close call. I mean, all climbing walls are made of wood. It's a miracle they managed to control anything and not only save the event, but the entire Olympic gym from catching fire, which is just, it's amazing. And even better, no one got hurt. So yeah, I'd love to know if you have any thoughts on the situation. Would love to hear anything you have to say. And then we need to talk about Lonnie Kauk. If you don't know who he is, Lonnie is a professional snowboarder and climber. He's the son of one of the most legendary climbers of the 20th century, Ron Kauk, and he was just found guilty of domestic violence. More specifically, on April 18th, was convicted of 3 counts of felony domestic violence and 1 count of misdemeanor domestic violence in Mono County Superior Court. Now, all of this stems from a single incident which Lonnie Kauk had with his then-girlfriend Riley Hancock back in June 2023, when he shattered Hancock's car windows during a violent altercation, threatened her and her dog's life, and then subsequently strangled his partner to the point that she lost consciousness and even looked like she was having a seizure. Now, there is a lot that needs to be talked about when it comes to a story like this, but there is a part in the article that I'll link below, which goes into detail about the trial that I think is especially important. That being the fact that it took the Mono County Superior Court an entire day to find an appropriate jury for the trial because, quote, others deeply involved in the climbing and splitboarding communities knew of Kauk's notoriety and felt uncomfortable with the idea that if they found him guilty, it would be embarrassing for them at the crag. This is a problem. This is the exact sort of attitude that allowed people like Lonnie Kauk or Charlie Barrett to continuously terrorize victims for years without any consequences, and it's an attitude that needs to stop. On top of all of this, Lonnie Kauk was actually one of the people who testified against Barrett after his assault of Bonnie Hedlund, and now we find out that he's a domestic abuser himself. But of course, I'm gonna pass this off to you guys in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts on the situation. I'm linking an article that details the trial and talks about what happened on the night the assault occurred with a little more depth than I'm willing to do so myself. If you'd like to know more, check it out. But fair warning, it's kind of a tough read. And I, of course, will keep you guys updated on all of this as we get more details. Sentencing for Lonnie Kauk is set to take place on June 23rd, so we'll see what ends up happening. And finally, a bit of a change of pace here, but Hamish McArthur has just gotten the second ascent of Megatron V17/9A, which I think could very well be one of, if not the hardest boulder problems out there. At the very least, it seems this one is on the higher end of the 9A spectrum. It apparently took Hamish only 5 total sessions to get this thing done. And even more crazy, he got past the crux 9 times on the days he sent, which is, I mean, the dude is way too strong. And now I kind of want to talk about his Instagram post because it's, well, it's something. I think a while back there was a video of Giuliano Cameroni sending an 8C+. Here's a link where he says that he just turned off, entered a flow state, found himself on top of the boulder, and then after a lot of V2, which has kind of become a meme. He says something along the lines of, I think that's why Fred Nicole called it dream time, talking about the world's first 8C boulder. Now, I'm pretty sure that's what Hamish experienced on Megatron, and I don't think it's something he's made up. It's something Giuliano has experienced, something I have also experienced too, but on way easier stuff, and maybe something you guys have experienced as well. And it's something that does feel, or can feel, somewhat profound on a certain level, which brings me to my question, which is, why do I find this post so cringe-inducing? Like, my first instinct is to want to make fun of this, and yet I'm also acknowledging the fact that he's referencing a lived truth. So am I just an asshole who is way too cynical for his own good, or is there something else? I don't know. Climbing media is rife with attributions of meaning that I think can be somewhat misplaced. What I mean is, real rock. It's the constant search for some profundity, the addition of something larger, necessitated by the fact that at the end of the day, climbing is kind of an inherently meaningless activity. But then despite that fact, who the hell am I to say what is and isn't meaningful to someone else? What someone else can decide is important and how they want to express that. But I can't help but wonder if there isn't some level of pressure that some of the people at the very top of the climbing game feel as though they have to say something to give their accomplishments extra importance. Like Brooke writing a letter to Excalibur, this Hamish poem thing, a pressure caused by stuff like branding and sponsorships and just general media trends, because the climb itself on its own in a vacuum isn't, for whatever reason, enough. I don't know. I don't know Hamish. I don't know what climbing really means to him. And in the case that he's actually being genuine about how big of a thing this is for him, it's people like me who, for whatever reason, feel like caring a little too much and demonstrating that fact isn't particularly cool, that make expressing yourself the way he has be kind of a courageous thing. So yeah, this is kind of turning into a really weird introspective hole. The bottom line is I have no idea how to feel about what he wrote. I still think the language is a little bit overdramatic. Again, the first thing I wanted to do was make fun of him, but then again, who am I to judge? In any case, hopefully this is making you think about something interesting. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments about everything I just said. The whole point of this channel is to start conversations about certain things, and the need for climbing media to be deep is definitely one of them. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that that's not something you see as much of in other sports for some reason. But hey, that was some climbing news. Kind of an intense episode there. Thanks again for watching, for liking, for commenting. Please don't forget to subscribe if you're enjoying these updates, and yeah, go climb some stuff.